A recent global poll indicated that 47% of millennials believe World War III will break out in their lifetimes. But in fact, believe it or not, we're living in an extraordinarily peaceful time in human history. So here, in 3 Charts, we ask, are we, as the young generation seems to believe, destined for more war? If one were to take a snapshot of the number of state-based conflicts going on in the world, we might see why millennials' pessimism is justified. A conflict that is defined as state-based is one in which at least one of the 2 parties is a state government and results in at least 25 battle-related deaths in a year. Under that definition, there are currently 56 such active conflicts. Given that there are 195 countries in the world, that's 30% of them. Clearly then, we're not living under conditions of absolute peace. However, this doesn't mean that this isn't a huge improvement from the past. When we delve into the numbers, there's no doubt about it. War is in decline. One of the best ways of measuring this is by looking at the number of battle-related deaths in state-based conflicts. The first fact to consider is that the absolute number of war deaths has been declining since 1945, which marked the end of the Second World War. There are few noticeable peaks during the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and the Iran, Iraq, and Afghanistan wars in the 80s. There have also been more recent deadly conflicts, such as in Syria and Ukraine. The trend, though, is clearly downwards. This becomes even clearer when we look not at absolute numbers of battle-related deaths, but as a proportion of the world population, which of course has been growing rapidly. Here we see that the share of battle deaths is in remarkable decline. There are several reasons for this, including democratization, international organizations, and the globalization of trade. Whatever the reasons, though, as one writer has put it, the better angels of our nature seem to be winning. That said, nations are not exactly interpreting this trend as a justification for disarmament. Almost as a rule, most countries spend on their militaries even in the absence of conflict. One way of measuring military expenditure is as a share of GDP. According to that measure, spending has gradually gone down since the 1960s, and global military spending has leveled off since the end of the Cold War at around 2.2% of GDP. But most countries' income has gone up considerably in that time, and so a better picture of military expenditure is when it's shown as adjusted for inflation. We can see that there is most certainly an upward trend here. Globally, it's been rising, and if we look at 3 of the world's main military powers, the US, China, and Russia, the long-term trend since 1949 is also an upward one. In 3 Charts, we have asked whether millennials' fears about an increase in wars in their lifetimes are justified. First, we saw that many of the world's countries are currently engaged in armed conflict, and that could mislead one into thinking the incidence of war is escalating. However, since the end of World War II, there's a clear trend showing that the severity of war is actually in decline. But there's a worrying catch. Although we may be engaged in conflict considerably less than in the past, this doesn't mean that we don't have the capabilities to wage increasingly deadly wars, nor are we scaling back on our military spending. Quite the opposite. In fact, we are increasing it. Let's just hope most of this spending is for the right reason: defense, not offense. As John F. Kennedy said, it is an unfortunate fact that we can secure peace only by preparing for war. Thanks for watching. Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and please don't forget to like and subscribe.